If you had to book a plane ticket but the only option was a flight with one of the most hated airlines in the world, would you still do it? You may ask me, what is the most hated airline in the world? Well, let me introduce you to Ryanair. They're known for their hard landings, frequent delays, rude staff, cramped seats, but that's not all. On top of everything I just said, they're also making fun of their customers on social media. So today I'm gonna be flying from Sofia to Malaga and back, putting them to the test to see if these rumors are actually true. I'm gonna be rating Ryanair based on these three things: their punctuality, the comfort on the airplane, and without a doubt their landings. Apparently they're so bad that the first image you see on Google when you type hard landing is of Ryanair. Also, I have to leave a positive review even though Ryanair is considered a one-star airline. But first, of course, we have to get to the airport. So after going inside, I successfully cleared security and then of course followed the duty free, where I found these interesting 80/20 t-shirts and this weird box full of Oreos. Maybe, I have no idea. Anyways, after passing the duty free, I got to the seating area, which was really nice, and it had these cute little overpriced food places. Also, I had a great view out the window and I was able to capture these beautiful photos. But now it's time for a Lou review. It was nice and quite clean, so it gets a solid 7 out of 10, which puts it in the lead.
So this over there is our airplane that we're gonna be boarding very soon.
But before we get on, let me read you some of the reviews of Ryanair so you know what we're up to. Hugh said, "First time flying with Ryanair, flight late both directions, never used for a short city break. You'll spend the whole time in airports waiting for the poorly organized airline. Will actively avoid using in future." 1 star. Okay, hope that doesn't happen to me. The next review is by Deutsche Bahn? "If I could give Ryanair 0 stars, I certainly would. They may be a budget airline, but they're horrible. Even on a budget airline, I expect to be treated like a human being." 1 star. I mean, you get a seat, what else do you need as a human being?
Okay, how am I even supposed to rate this? Like 1 star, absolute filth, no effort in customer service. And OMG, don't even get me started on these landings. I'm flying Aer Lingus from now on.
1 star. Okay, I have no idea what am I even supposed to respond to this one. But now I have to see for myself if Ryanair really makes fun of people online, so I made this post on Twitter tagging them and sadly they didn't respond. After being ignored like that, I got on the bus that took me to the airplane. And of course I didn't forget to touch the outside of the plane as I boarded. Anyway, shortly after I got to my seat, 26A, boarding finished and we started taxiing to the runway. Following takeoff, the plane ascended through the layers of clouds before cruising started. And now that we're in the air, let's check out what Ryanair has to offer. Firstly, we get a very hard seat.
So yay!
A tiny tray table.
So cool!
OMG! 1 centimeter of legroom.
Oh yeah!
Wow.
So cool!
A window.
OMG, no way!
A seat that doesn't recline. Aww,
Too
so
bad.
sad. However, at least there were movable armrests. In addition, there were both air conditioning and reading lights that were working, though I'm not sure how effective. And last but not least, there was this crucial safety instructions that I had to stare at for the entire duration of the flight. Overall, everything's quite basic, but you have all the essentials and you get what you paid for. I also noticed that the floor wasn't the cleanest, which for some reason didn't really surprise me. Something on the airplane I found cool were those blue LED lights on the ceiling. They create a calm environment, but genuinely they just look so fun. I mean, just look at them, how cool is that? It was soon time for a snack and I wanted to see what options I have, so I scanned the QR code at the back of the seat, which promised to give me access to today's menu, however it just directed me to the Ryanair app. Interestingly, the app somehow worked while my phone was on airplane mode, and I have no idea what kind of black magic is Ryanair using to pull it off, however you needed a registration to access the menu. Now since nothing's free on this airline, I just ended up eating my own snack. The flight was going well, and as we flew over some beautiful Spanish islands, it was soon time to land. This was the most stressful part of the flight. I was literally bracing for impact, holding tightly to my phone that I was using to record, but then The landing was so smooth that I literally didn't feel when the plane touched down. We taxied to our gate before deboarding and getting on the bus. Honestly, I think that this flight was actually pretty enjoyable, but now it's time for another one to truly see what Ryanair is actually like. In the days leading up to my flight back, I spent some time walking around in Spain and in Gibraltar, which I have another video about. It was the day of the flight back, so I got to the airport and I was so impressed by the terminal. It had a large open space and lots of greenery everywhere, adding a pretty charming feel to it. And upon passing the duty-free, I stumbled upon this M&M stand, which I just thought looked so silly. Now, while waiting for my gate to be announced, it was time for another, you guessed it, Blue Review. This restroom wasn't much different from the previous one, so it also gets a 7 out of 10. When I exited, my gate popped up on the board and I had to start sprinting because it was all the way on the other side of the terminal. Well, by on the other side of the terminal, I mean only a 7-minute walk, but you get what I'm saying. At the gate, there was a big queue and we waited a whole 30 minutes before being let through. And of course, Ryanair doesn't use jet bridges, even though there was one literally right here, so we had to walk outside to get to the plane, which I actually enjoy. On a side note, while writing the script for this video, I just noticed this. I don't know why I tried to touch the winglet, it's probably like 3 meters off the ground, so I wouldn't have reached it anyways, but yeah. Boarding wasn't very quick, but eventually I got to my seat for this flight, which was 26A again. With a delay of only 25 minutes, it was time for taxi and then takeoff. By the way, the takeoff on this flight was really stunning since it was golden hour and I absolutely loved it. Our plane continued ascending and soon we were cruising. And now that we're in the air, let's check out what this seat has to offer. It basically has all the same stuff as the previous one, featuring this tiny tray table, the window, the air conditioning, and so on. Although I was a bit sad because this plane didn't have those cool blue lights on the ceiling, instead having these reddish ones. Also, the Ryanair app still worked offline somehow. However, the floor was dirty once again, but what else can you expect from Ryanair? We passed right over Italy, then Croatia, and soon enough it was time for the approach, so the plane took a sharp left turn in order to align with the runway. It was now the most important part of the flight, but also the most stressful. I was preparing for... Never mind, the landing was once again very smooth. But I wondered why no one was clapping when the plane landed, since that's usually what happens when a plane full of Bulgarian passengers lands. We taxied to our stand and deboarding quickly started. However, I patiently waited in my seat, vibing to the Ryanair background music, because I wanted to deplane from the front so I could take a quick peek inside the cockpit. Almost everyone had exited the aircraft, so I went to the front to ask the flight attendants if they could let me in the cockpit for a little bit. They agreed and allowed me in, however only for a short amount of time since the other passengers were waiting for us in the bus. Overall, both flights were pretty nice, but now it's time for the final scores. The punctuality was acceptable since the outbound flight was on time and the return flight was delayed by only 25 minutes, so I'd rate it a solid 4.5 stars. On the other side though was the comfort on the plane, and without a doubt the seats weren't very comfortable to sit on for almost 4 hours straight. But I don't know what else are you expecting from a budget airline when the ticket only costs around 50 euros and sometimes you can get tickets for as little as 15. The final score is 4 stars. Now finally, the infamous Ryanair landings. When it comes to the landings I experienced on both flights, they were pretty smooth, so I don't get why people hate them so much. I'd rate them 5 stars. It's now time for my final review. I wouldn't say that Ryanair are the worst airline in the world as some people claim, though it was a bit annoying trying to sell me overpriced duty-free stuff, but who cares about that? Anyways, Ryanair is definitely a decent airline. Keep in mind that their main purpose is to get you from point A to point B with some compromises. And I'd definitely fly with them again. 5 stars.